All right, good evening, everybody. Okay, so let's read through Matthew 27. We're going to read through verses 11 through 26. 11 through 26. I have the ESV. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "You have said so." But when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many things they testify against you?" But he gave him no answer, not even to a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. Now at the feast, the governor was accustomed, and he's talking about the Passover, was accustomed to release for the crowd any one prisoner whom they wanted. And they had then a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?" For he knew that it was out of envy that they had delivered him up. Besides, while he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, saying, sent word to him, having nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered, have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much because of him today in a dream. Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and destroy Jesus. "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate to them, "Then what shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ?" They all said, "Let him be crucified." And he said, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Let him be crucified." So when Pilate saw that he was gaining nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." And all the people answered, "His blood be on us and on our children." Then he released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, delivered him to be crucified. Amen. Amen. So the title of tonight's Bible study that I got from the text is "The Cry of the Crowd versus the Call of Christ." On your handout, I have in parentheses truth, because we know that Christ, Jesus, and truth are synonymous. And so it's also a lesson in irony. I think it's important to take a look at it because Matthew goes to great lengths to point the ironies out. So we're going to take a look at it. And also, he goes to great lengths to show us who's really on trial. It's a trial of the conscience, and whose conscience is it? It's Pilate's. Pilate is really on trial. That's one of the ironies. Okay, so just a little background on this. As Matthew is probably preaching this to his congregation, I'm picturing him using Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 and 14. The reason why, because Matthew chapter 7 says, "Enter by the narrow gate. For the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction. Those who enter by it are many." Now listen, that's the noisy crowd. That's the loud noise, because many are on it. Many are screaming it. Many voices are saying that this is what's true and that's what's true. Okay. Many are on that. So that's a loud cry from the crowd. "For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life." And that's the call of Christ. That's the call of truth. Okay. And he says, "And those who find it are few." And we're going to see the principle being applied here. So first thing we're going to do is look at, I call it irony number 1, Pilate on trial. And that's verses 11 through 14. We all know the answer. Will Pilate choose the cry of the crowd or the call of Christ? And he's going to choose the answer already. He's going to choose the cry of the crowd. What we're going to look at is the process that he goes through. All right, so look, so that you can get the idea that this is a trial. I just want to draw your attention to verse 24 real quick. We're going to come back to it, but I want to draw your attention to it so that we can see that this is Pilate's trial. So when Pilate saw that he was gaining nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, I am innocent of this man's blood. You see that? That's his verdict on himself. This is how Matthew is letting us know that Pilate is on trial. He says, I'm innocent of this man's blood, right? He is definitely on trial. So jump back to verse 11. We're going to walk through that. Hold on. I went too far. Sorry about that. Now, Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, are you the king of the Jews? Jesus answered, Jesus said, you have said so. But when he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate said to him, do you not hear how many things they testify against you? But he gave him no answer, not even to a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. And let me talk about that word greatly. And so right here is saying that word greatly, when I looked it up, it meant that he was very much astonished. And so it made me think about, y'all, it made me think about why was he astonished, or why was he surprised? And I could not help but think about the fact that, in doing my research, Pilate had been governor probably for around about 10 years, which tells you that he has experience. As a matter of fact, because the Jews could no longer impose a death penalty, only Rome could, that he was the one who often judged capital punishment cases, where people are going to be put on trial to be put to death, to be crucified. And so he had experience at that. And so that made me want to understand, okay, what was going on here. And I thought about, and I watch a lot of crime TV. That's my drug of choice, crime TV. So and so one of the things I looked up was, how do you know when someone is lying? How do you know what's up? And basically all of the answers came from experience. Now, hold on 1 second. ForensicColleges.com had a list of 10 top signs when someone is lying. Okay? Now, these all come from experience. There's no secret formula or anything. It comes from questioning people a lot. And so one of them is a change in speech patterns. And so that's the whole reason why interrogators ask questions, i.e., are you king of the Jews? To notice speech patterns. Now, Matthew doesn't record Jesus talking a lot, but John does. Jesus actually talks a lot to Pilate. And so he tells them about his kingdom not being of this world. They have a conversation about what is truth and all of it. So one of the things that you experience teaches you is a change in speech patterns. The other is, one of them is the use of non-congruent gestures. Matthew doesn't really record any gestures by Jesus. The other one that he does record, though, is not saying enough. What it means is like, if you have a fixed story, if your story has been prepared beforehand, and you ask that person about the story, and they talk about the story, and then you ask them what else happened, they should be able to tell you what else happened. But when they aren't able, they stumble and tell you, chances are it's because what they told you before was prepared and could be a lot. That comes from experience. The other thing is, watch this, and this is the one that really applied, I thought, saying too much. Saying too much. And so Jesus is on trial for his life in front of the guy who can set him free. And when they bring all these charges against him, it is very noticeable to Pilate, who has experience, that Jesus is not saying too much. He is not saying too much. He is actually not saying anything, which would have told Pilate that this guy could be telling the truth. It could be innocent, because Pilate would know this from what? Experience. That's why I believe one of the reasons why Matthew in verse 11, he uses governor twice. Now, the other accounts, they use governor. He was taken to the governor, Pilate, the governor, he was taken to the governor, but they don't use it twice in the first sentence. He uses twice in the first sentence. One of the reasons I believe why is because he wants us to notice this. Okay? Other reason is this. The other reason this is this, and let me get it out the way. You must say it, he's teaching his congregation. Mm-hmm. Okay, back in Matthew chapter 10, Jesus, in Matthew chapter 10, Jesus tells his disciples about, when he sends them out, he tells them about being persecuted. He says, you're going to be dragged into synagogues and flogged there for my name's sake. Dragged in front of governors and kings. And here's the thing, he says something else in the gospel. He said that he's pretty much said, everything that happens to me is going to happen to you. So therefore, Matthew is teaching, could be teaching, look and see what Jesus said that's going to happen to us, because his church could be going through persecution. But Jesus said that could happen, that is happening, but I want you to see that it happened to him first. Very specifically, he went to the Jews, that's the synagogue. He went to the governor, that's Pilate. And then he went to kings, that would be Herod. You all see that? So, but again, back to this, I want you to see this as the first call to his conscience. The first time his conscience goes, uh-oh, this guy could be innocent. Okay? So that's That's that voice from within, all right? Guy could be innocent. But I want you to know that it's a quiet voice compared to the cry of the crowd. I think Matthew does this on purpose. Does it on purpose, that he's greatly amazed, but no one knows. It's quiet. Now, in front of the crowd, let me take you to verse 15. We're going to look at verses 15 through 23, which I call the second call. That was the first call, his conscience. The second call of Christ will come. Actually, two things are happening. There's going to be the cry of the crowd and the call of Christ, or the call of truth. It's going to be the crowd that's loud, and it's going to be the call of truth that's quiet. Take a look. Now look at the feast, verse 15. Now at the feast, the governor was accustomed to release for the crowd any one prisoner whom they wanted. He had then a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called the Christ?" So let me let you see here what's going on in Pilate's conscience. In the first few verses, he realizes that this guy he's not acting like a guilty person. He's not acting guilty. He's doing something that tells me that he's not guilty. Right? That alerts his conscience right there. So what I want to do? He's looking for a way. Listen, looking for a way. He is looking for a way to make it go away without him being culpable. He's trying to get this out of his conscience. And he sees a way out. This Passover, and this is something I do every year, and I'm going to here's my opportunity to get out of this. I'm going to bring this Barabbas, watch this Barabbas, who is an insurrectionist and who is a murderer. Watch this. The Jews did not like guys like this. We know it from the book of Acts chapter 5, when Gamaliel talks about the movement of Christ, and he brings up these other guys like Barabbas in the past. When these guys do this, it brings heat on the rest of the Jews. Persecution on them. Some of them get killed unnecessarily. So Pilate's thinking, hey, they hate Barabbas. Jesus, perhaps, this Jesus, he's done some good things. Perhaps they'll choose to let Jesus go because they hate Barabbas. And he's hoping for that. He's hoping for this way out. Watch this. What's the reason why? Verse 18. For he knew that it was out of envy that they had delivered him up. That was his conscience. He even knows that it's an injustice being done. That there's an injustice being done here. And so while they're shouting, he tells them to choose while they're shouting Barabbas, there's a lot of noise going on. He gets a call from his wife. And just a little contemporary livelihood there. He gets a call from his wife, and he reaches down. She calls him, texts him, and reaches down. She said, "I had a dream about this guy. Don't touch him. He's a righteous man." Now that's the look, y'all. That's the Lord calling the truth. Here's a guy that thinks he knows when someone's telling the truth. That's part of his job. He's a truth profiler. And while he's sitting there, his wife sent word, have nothing to do with this righteous man, in a dream. But don't nobody hear that but him. That, see the contrast? The cry of the crowd shouting Barabbas, and his wife in her still small little voice saying, don't touch that man. Now, let me give you a little background about his wife and who she is. To add to what Pilate, I want you to understand what he is going through. Because Jesus is in control of this whole situation, of this whole trial. He's in control. And Pilate's the one that's acting like he's on trial. He's going through emotionally what a person on trial would be going through. You see it what Matthew's showing us that. His wife is telling him, the crowd is screaming, his conscience is bothering him. Woo! And guess what? For application purposes, whenever we face the contrast of choosing between what's popular and choosing Christ, we go through the same agony. The same agony. You know why? You know why, y'all? You know why? Let me help y'all. His wife's name is Claudia. Claudia Procula is her name. And she has close ties to the Emperor Tiberius. As a matter of fact, she is one of the granddaughters of Caesar Augustus. Y'all know who he was. She's probably the reason why Pilate got that appointment. Now, you understand how Pilate feeling now? Watch this. I would hate to have been in his shoes. Watch this. He would have to lose everything to choose Christ. He would have to give up. He would lose his post. He would lose everything to have to choose him. Watch this. His wife's respect, he would use, because she would lose her clout. Her people that, you know, those people that she know, my people know, you have your people call my people, those people that she know. They ain't gonna want to talk to her no more. He's thinking about that. He has a lot of pressure on him, Pilate does. And so, he's looking at, watch this. We're looking at the second irony. Verse 20. Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas. Look at that. And destroy Jesus. The governor again said to them, which of the two do you want me to release for you? They said, Barabbas. Pilate said to them, then what shall I do with this Jesus who called the Christ? They all said, let him be crucified. Hold up right there. Hold up right there for a second. Here's the irony. Here's the irony. Y'all remember when Peter cut off Malchus's ear? Remember what Jesus said to Peter? Put away your sword. Those who live by the sword will what? Die by the sword. Now watch the irony. Barabbas is a freedom fighter. If Barabbas would have been in Jesus' shoes in the Garden of Gethsemane, it would have been on. Right, on and popping, right? Because that's what he's arrested for. He murdered someone. So here it is. Jesus refuses to be a freedom fighter, but is going to die on the cross of a freedom fighter. He's going to die on Barabbas's cross. See the irony in that? He refused to fight against Rome. Told his disciples, I could call down 12 legions. I refuse to fight this fight. I'm going to drink this cup. And the one who fights against Rome, the one who stirs up trouble, even for the Jews, Jesus dies on his cross. That's the irony. And guess what, y'all? Guess what, y'all? That's us. Barabbas. We're Barabbas. You say, well, I ain't never killed nobody. No, you ain't never killed nobody, but you hated somebody. Jesus said, if you hate, you committed murder. I know I didn't hate some folk. At least hated what they did. I'm probably still hate some folk, if I'm honest. Yeah. And so I deserve a murderer's death. He died on my cross. He died on your cross. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Y'all might say, well, I can't really relate to this because you know, I chose Christ. I didn't choose what the you did. You chose Christ, and I did too. But here's the thing: there's always situations that we can get into where the cry of the crowd, that loud cry of the crowd, what's popular versus what's Christian. You'd be surprised at how many times we go with what's popular. Yeah, we go with what's popular. Yeah, you know, it's in Christianity. You see it all the time. People, they move in together. I just counsel someone. I won't use any name. Just counsel somebody that's living together, that's talking about getting married, and this person talks about his values and what he expects in his wife, and she wants him. She wants to get married, but he's holding off because she ain't living up to his values. I said to myself, this Negro got values. I said, well, what about her values? Her values line up with God's values. She wants to get married. Well, what about her value? But see, well, what makes him be able to listen? What makes him be able to rest in her bed? That he is listening to the cry of the crowd. You hear that? Yeah. Listen, there are Christians maybe on this line. There are Christians maybe on this phone that love Jesus, but they have a problem with calling homosexuality sin. Because they got somebody in their family that's homosexual. And inadvertently supports homosexualities by the stuff they watch on TV and jokes they listen to and things they watch. They support it. Because the crowd is doing it. Yeah. You saved, we get saved, but we follow the crowd all the time. All the time. And so we talked about the first call, second call. Let's talk about the final call that Pilate has in his conscience. Verses 23 through 26. Look. And he said, here's his conscience speaking out loud. After they said, let him be crucified, they choose Barabbas. They said, let him be crucified. And Pilate says, why? What evil has he done? He's just one voice. Listen, why? What evil has he done? Watch this. Which is what Matthew does. Versus this, versus the next part of that sentence. But they shouted all the more. That's the loudness, the cry of the crowd. You have what truth is saying through Pontius is asking the questions. Why? What evil has he done? He's innocent. But he's just one voice. Then all these voices shout all the more. Say they got even louder. Let him be crucified. So when Pilate, verse 24, saw that he was gaining nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, here it is, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves. Now watch this. I want to stop there. We talked about last week. You know how we talked about, Pastor taught us how Judas defiles himself, how the chief priests defiled the temple and the land. And you remember Jesus telling his disciples about his prediction that he's going to be turned over to the Gentiles. So watch this, y'all. Just to follow up on what Pastor showed us last time. It says, so when Pilate saw that it was gaining nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took his water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourself. And all the people answered, his blood on us and on our children. Then he released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, delivered him to be crucified. Let me show you what's going on here. So Pilate wanting to exonerate himself, he says, I'm not guilty of this blood. But I want to bring your attention to a couple of things. One, Paul says something similar to this in the Corinthian letter. He says in the Corinthian letter, hold on. Paul says in preaching to Corinthians, he says, therefore I testify to you this day, this is in the book of Acts chapter 20, verse 26, that I am innocent of the blood of any of you. Why? Because he preached the gospel. And what was the gospel? The truth. Now watch this. Pilate says, I am innocent of this man's blood. But what declares you innocent of a person's blood, according to Paul, is telling the truth. Catch this now, is telling the truth. And so just because he has cleared his own conscience doesn't mean that he is clear, that he is not guilty. Hear that? Because that's important, because it's an exercise in the court of conscience, because we all there. Paul talks about our conscience being seared by sin, because what we can do is conscience can become hard. And we can think that we have cleared ourselves. But only truth clears you. Because Paul said, I told you the truth, therefore I can wash my hands. You cannot wash your hands unless you told the truth. You see that? It's tricky. It's deceptive. You can deceive yourself into thinking that you have cleared your conscience, that you're innocent. See that? And his blood be on us, the Jews said, and our children. That they would go through any length, that they would even curse their own children. You know, just because somebody say, I swear on my children, y'all don't be believing it. Don't be believing it just because they swear on their children. I have one more thing before I close. Hold on. Just like I said last week, how Pastor showed us how Judas and the chief priests defiled themselves, actually defiled Israel. Well, the same thing happens here with the Gentiles, because as much as the Jews thought the Gentiles were defiled all the time, and I mean, yeah, they were sinful. I mean, they practiced polytheism, but the Jews were sinful too. But my point is that now the Gentiles are defiled. See how Pastor showed us, because of Judas's decision, because of chief priest's decision, they were now, and Pastor used Old Testament, but I'm using his prediction that he will be turned over after the Jews defiled themselves with them. They turn them over to the Gentiles, and the Gentiles through Pilate not answering the call of Christ, right? Then now the Gentiles are defiled. And here's the thing, because Jesus is going to represent them both on the cross. He's going to represent them both on the cross. See that? Yeah. So yeah, if Pilate's opportunity to clear his conscience would have turned into a commitment, he probably would have died too. But let me tell you something that happened. Eventually, Pilate's going to lose his position anyway. Uproars in Judea. He's going to be exiled, and he's going to end up committing suicide in exile. He had a much better future if he just said, you know what, this man is innocent. I am not going to crucify him. I'm going to let him go. And I know that God was God's will that Jesus go to the cross. He would have went anyway, but Pilate would have said, it won't be by me. It won't be by me. And guess what? Him and his wife could have walked into glory. They could have walked into glory together, as they were both probably put to death. Quiet the crowd, verse called. Yeah. Y'all know some of y'all still love Oprah. All right. Y'all, I forgot I'm talking to Christian Fellowship. Y'all.